Yeah, we are in the place to be.
Hello and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to go through the second version of the Vogue 9267 dress that I constructed a couple of weeks ago now actually. While I play back some of the construction of the dress, I might just go over a couple of things that I did differently and a bit of the specifications of the second version. I'm not going to go over too much of the actual construction of the dress, as the footage for that is already in the video for the first version I made, which I'll link in the description down below. A big problem I had with the first version was that I tried to adjust the waist down, because when I made my muslin, it looked like the waist was too high up my rib cage. But once I constructed the actual dress, the waist was actually way too long. So this time around, I just made the waist as per the pattern, and that turned out really great. So the second version was the same pattern but with the waistline as per the pattern instructions. So instead of lowering it like I did with the first version, I kept it as per the pattern. I used the bodice in size A, which worked well for me the first time. I took off the sleeves and I did not line the skirt. Version 2 was made out of a magnolia printed white back cotton sateen from Spotlight, and I used white rayon, also from Spotlight, to line the bodice. When I made this, because I made it before, I just kind of adopted a production line approach to construction. I did all the bits of the bodice, including the lining layer, in one go. So for every step, I did all the pieces. That being things like the darts for all the front pieces and the back pieces, and the lining front and lining back pieces. I did them all at the same time. I ironed them all at the same time. I sewed them all at the same time. I pinned them all at the same time. And then I moved on to the next step, which is a little bit different from the instructions, because I kind of knew what to expect. In saying that, when I got to the waistband portion of the dress, once you've constructed the bodice, you add a waistband to it, it actually did not line up with the circumference of the bodice. So it was about a good 2 or 3 inches shorter. I'm not really sure why this is, because I checked the pattern piece and I checked my traced version of the pattern piece, and that was the size that the pattern instructed you to cut. So I'm not sure what happened, but I went ahead and cut a new waistband piece and interfaced it, and then used that. I just cut it a couple of inches longer than what the pattern recommended, and that seemed to work out fine. I did have to cut out some excess when I went to put in the zip, but for all intents and purposes, it came out okay. The fabric was so much easier to work with, and that was just because cotton sateen is a little bit more stable. It doesn't move around as much as the crepe fabric did. And it actually made for a really easy, really enjoyable construction. My dinner didn't burn. So as you can hopefully see from that footage, there's a couple of fitting things that were not in version 1 that became an issue in version 2, and they're not super obvious, but I can see them. Things like around where the pleats finish, it sits a little bit tight, like it doesn't, in the model's picture, it looks like a perfect bell from the waist down, and mine has a little bit of cutting in, but I suppose that's just the nature of the fact that I have larger hips than most people, and I guess the pattern specifications or the pattern size was catered for smaller hips than mine, so that's fine. And something I can easily fix the next time if I ever make this dress again, just by letting the pleats out a little bit instead of making them quite as large as they have in the instructions. Another thing to remember if you're planning on making this dress is that the cup size runs a little bit large. So I'm generally not a size A, or in most patterns. I'm more of a B, depending on the style. This is the first Vogue pattern I've made where the bodice was fitted, so potentially I'm an A in Vogue, I guess that's what that means. But I know when I did the calculation correctly, it did recommend a B cup. However, you know, I took measurements and sort of thought that was a little bit roomy for what the style seemed to ask for. Other than that, the pattern instructions were super easy to follow for this dress. I have made it a couple of times now, so things made a lot more sense. As I was going, I remembered to do things in a particular order. But even, I would say for a beginner, it's not as difficult as a lot of patterns out there. There are princess seams, but if you use a stable fabric like the pattern recommends, and I did in version 2, those seams are quite easy to fit in. So that's all for this week. I know it was kind of a short / different video, but I haven't been sewing a super heap lately. I've just sort of been doing small adjustments and planning for future projects. So I'm doing stuff kind of off camera, things like presents for my family that they can't see, hence I can't put up a video about it. Other than that, I'll leave the link to the other 2 videos related to version 1 of this dress in the description box below. Please don't forget to like and subscribe so you know when I upload a new video, hopefully next week, but who knows. I'm trying to stick to a weekly schedule. You can also follow along on Instagram in the meantime. I hope you have a wonderful weekend, and I'll see you next week. Bye!